You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. Let me start. You broke the news that Ed Orgeron would not be retained, but would finish the season, breaking that news early yesterday morning or early yesterday afternoon. When was it clear to you that that was going to be the decision and the timeline?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think those two things are separate probably. I think the decision, right, was pretty obvious, Matt, after UCLA. I know that sounds crazy, but when LSU goes there and looks like they did against a team that, wasn't supposed to be great, a Pac-12 team that's already lost, by the way, I think 2 games, including one to Fresno State, it became pretty obvious after that game that LSU probably wasn't going to reach the 8-4 or so mark, which it is, 8-4, 9-3 mark, which it really needed to do this year for Ed Orgeron to keep his job. So I think you kind of knew that was coming early on. As far as the timeline, that was something that was certainly more difficult to lock down. But now we know a little more about the timeline, But late last week, Thursday night, maybe Friday into Friday, it was pretty obvious something was going on. The amount of calls you get from people in the Baton Rouge and LSU community, it was obvious that there was negotiations or talks to reach some kind of settlement to split with Ed Orgeron. What you really didn't know is, one, when do they announce that? And two, do they let him complete the season as coach? And those things were obviously a little more difficult to nail down. I mean, the biggest thing, him completing the season as coach, was really difficult to nail down. And it's why, Friday or Saturday, you didn't see me report anything. It kind of took a little while to make sure that was going to be the case, and to make sure that the announcement was going to be announced, even though they lost even though they won and beat Florida. But it was obvious this was coming, for several days, and I think we learned last night at the news conference, right, that Scott Woodward told Ed Orgeron on the Sunday after the Kentucky game that you won't be our coach next year. And they began to work on a settlement that sounds like mostly, at least verbally agreed to a day or two before the Florida game.
Yeah, so Ed Orgeron coached that game knowing that he was done. But what's really interesting is if the timeline of the announcement was going to be altered because they won the game. Can you take us into some of those conversations and how that decision was made to proceed with the announcement when it was made, considering they won the game and many people thought that might actually delay it? Because how could you make the announcement after winning the Florida game? Yet they did.
Yeah, it was crazy. After they won, I mean, you immediately get hit with messages from people that, to sum it up, are, well, they can't do it now. They can't possibly do it now. I mean, and I kept going back to 2 or 3 people, and the message was, at least as of Sunday morning, no, it's still on course, like for Sunday or Monday. And it's just like kind of head scratching, like, wow, and which tells you again that this was done days before the Florida game. Like, this was all ironed out and done days before the Florida game. And so they hammered it out after Kentucky. What's the weird thing for me is that when you tell a coach, Sunday, obviously the day after the Kentucky game, that he's not going to coach next year, at that point, a lot of schools in the past, and a lot of school administrators would have then come out and that's it. He's fired. Like we saw with maybe Les Miles and we've seen with so many other coaches. Like if you tell a coach that then you immediately announce, he's fired. It's weird that they chose not to do that. Instead, they chose to kind of like hash out the settlement part of it before making the announcement, which usually, a lot of times, not always, you see it going the opposite direction. You see announcement of a firing, and then the lawyers and the agents get together and they hash out the buyout of the deal. So that was kind of unusual.
Russ, you have a piece up right now at SI.com, and I would encourage anybody to go read it. I'm sure many of you already have, but it's the swift fall of Ed Orgeron at LSU inside a stunning post-title collapse. How long did it take you to put this narrative together?
About 3 days. I started working on it Friday when I realized that things were happening. I should say Thursday night, probably made the first calls on Thursday night. So Thursday night, all day Friday, all day Saturday. I hardly watched any football Saturday. I watched the LSU game, but that's about it. I did not watch any more other games. I was on the phone quite a bit or text and just trying to put this together. And mad at myself, I didn't really have it completely ready Saturday afternoon when reporting the news. I wish I would have, but I needed probably another hour or two with it. But it was interesting trying to contact people during this time. And I should say close to a third of that, right, that story was kind of done, right? I mean, just my knowledge of what's been happening there the last few weeks, maybe even last year. So I kind of knew a lot of stuff already. So it was trying to go back and comb through it and get some fresh quotes, things maybe that happened more recently, especially this season, and just kind of put things together. There's a lot of that, if not maybe half of that I kind of already had in my head. I kind of already knew before I started really putting it together Thursday night.
Russ, can you maybe, just from a journalistic standpoint, walk our audience through why? Because right now what's happening is a lot of stories of things that had reportedly transpired during the Orgeron era are just now being reported. Why are things like that just now being reported instead of when they happen?
Well, that's a great question. I think there's probably a few reasons. Number one, a lot of people aren't willing. They might talk to you about things that have happened around Ed Orgeron or inside the football facility, and you grant them anonymity to do that, to talk to you. But there's an expressed request from them on using that information, right? Not immediately. Like, here's this information. You can use it. You can, quote me anonymously, but don't you use that information until the trigger, so to speak, is pulled. Mm-hmm. So that happens. That happens a lot, where you have sources that don't want to be used until a decision has been made, on the future of the head coach. So, and in order to keep sources and keep relationships, you agree to those things. That's kind of how our business works. I think the second part of that is, until a decision is made, like LSU basically firing Ed Orgeron, people won't talk, or until the decision gets really close, right? People are more willing to talk and open up when you tell them, hey, Ed Orgeron is probably getting fired, or he's getting fired, or let's talk about why he's getting fired, And so there's a couple reasons there for sure. And then if you're a beat writer, you have to keep relationships with people on the beat. And it's a very difficult line to walk. You have to keep relationships with people at the university. And it's hard sometimes to write those stories until, again, the decision is made. It's hard to keep those relationships, until the decision is made. So it can get complicated. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask for the basis of clarity, because I know a lot of listeners may be asking that question today, and to hear it from from one of the best college football reporters in the country is certainly impactful. You did write a lot about Ed Orgeron's behavior, and that's been something that's been oft discussed here. Was there something or some things that stood out more so in the eyes, the minds of the decision makers, to where they said that's the thing that pushes this over the edge?
Well, I don't know if it's one thing or instance. I think, first of all, and Scott Woodward said it, yesterday at the news conference. But look, man, we ain't talking about this at LSU 7-0 or 6-1, right? We're not talking about this. He can call the UCLA fan sissy blue shirt, but guess what? Better go beat the UCLA team. Yeah. He can tell a fan to go to the fishing hole, but you better win the next 4 games or something. It's just, we're not talking about these things if LSU's winning on the field. And so to try to explain, why LSU isn't winning on the field is blank. And I think the behavior off the field just exacerbates things. It's funny. I had somebody tell me, Clay Helton out at USC was for so long, kept his job for like 3 years, and people didn't think he would keep his job for, I thought he would be fired in 2018, and he kept it for 3 more years. Why? Clay never made any kind of embarrassing public showing or comment, was just super great to deal with for not just media, but his administration. He kept his job because he didn't do those things. And when you're struggling on the field and you're also maybe having some public missteps that might embarrass the university, it's just like one of those, the last straw type of thing. It's like all this is piling up. You're struggling on the field. You have all these issues, maybe whatever. And then also you're saying things publicly that are just, to put it bluntly, kicking off, right, your bosses and in the university in general, making maybe the brand not look as good as you need to. So, that's kind of how I view it.
Last thing before you go, the obvious dismount. Who's next?
Well, I think, the names Scott Woodward has an MO. Everywhere he's been, he goes high. He goes to the top, man. It's an open, blank check type of thing, and goes to the very top, best of the best. We saw it with Kim Mulkey. We saw it with Jimbo Fisher when he was at A&M. Washington, he hired Chris Peterson. Nobody thought he'd get Chris Peterson out of Boise. They had tried for years. Hired Buzz Williams at A&M. He goes to the top. And so who at the top? You've got a pretty long list of names at the top that have been mentioned by pretty much everybody. The James Franklin, the Lane Kiffin, the Mel Tuckers, the Jimbos, the even Urbans, and but some of those I just said, right, at a place that's dealing with Title IX probably aren't going to happen, right? In I tweeted this earlier, but I also don't think that LSU's going to necessarily flirt with Jimbo a 4th time. They did in 05, 15, and 16, and then Jimbo seems pretty happy and settled there in A&M. So your list starts to get whittled down, and you hear Mel Tucker's name obviously a lot. James Franklin is somebody that you hear a lot for every big open job. And then you could probably have another rung of candidates that are the crazy ones that you say, no, well, surely Scott Woodward can't do that, like a Lincoln Riley or Brian Kelly or, these names like that. And then you got another rung, right, that are like the Billy Napier, or Matt Campbell or the G5 might be more level coaches, which isn't necessarily the Scott Woodward way. But if you get down the list, you wonder.
It's going to be an interesting few weeks. Well, it's always interesting around here. Ross Dellenger, he's on Twitter at Ross Dellenger over at SI. Y'all give him a follow. Thanks as always, man. Have a good one.
All right, man.
Be well. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.